Hello, huddlers, and welcome to another Career Huddle. This one features Danielle Hughes, Chief Personality Officer, it's probably important to note that, of More Than Words Marketing, with her tips on building your personal brand. In prepping for this conversation, I noticed this quote on Danielle's LinkedIn profile. A strong personal brand is a form of career insurance, which is why I just think it's so important that we can't spend enough time in CMO huddles talking about personal branding. That's a perfect summation of why we keep coming back to this topic and why CMO huddles offers unique PR exposure opportunities. Now, before I turn over the mic to Danielle, who has a brief framework to walk y'all through, let me tell you a little bit more about her. She's worked with a wide range of blue chip clients, including PwC, Discovery Channel, Google, Nickelodeon, Gap, Visa, TD Bank, and Columbia University, among many others. She's been called a wordsmith, a magician, a copywriter extraordinaire, a lifesaver, and a branding goddess, all of which are accurate. Importantly, Danielle wants you to know that she is available for party tricks and accepts payments in bottles of Bordeaux, Barolo, or Barbera, or any wine with any letter. And with that, hello, Danielle. How are you and where are you?
Thank you so much, Drew. I am in Forest Hills, which is in Queens, which is a suburb of New York City, in case anybody is not local or doesn't know that.
Very cool. I had a cousin who just was playing at the Forest Hills Stadium. I think maybe Claro was there, and he was, or I think, and he was drumming away. Cool. Anyway, okay, let's roll into this. I'm going to turn the floor over. You can hit the share button and put your slides up. Let's rock.
Let's rock. So we're going to talk today. I have a differentiation between personal brand and personality brand, which I will get into. And I think it's a really important distinction. But the most important thing is how we can all profit from having one, and how a clear personality brand helps us to drive that authority, awareness, and advancement inside our organization and outside of our organizations. What do you do? Number one question we probably all get asked at a job interview, a networking event, anytime you're meeting anybody in any form, in any setting. And most of us are woefully unprepared for this question. And even worse, most of us just say our job title. And, you know, the job title was not really written for you. Most likely your job title was written by someone in your organization who needed to fill a role, and you just happened to step into that role. So by telling someone the title of your job, you're not really telling them what you do. You're telling them something that could be super generic that could apply to several people. And what we're trying to do here is take ownership and differentiate so that you are saying more about who you are and how you think versus what you actually do. And as Drew just said, a strong personal brand is a form of career insurance. I'm just going to leave this here because I'll share it later in the slides. But if you want to read my full bio, you could read my full bio. And I just quickly want to say that I was essentially my first client. So I was in corporate, like most people, for many, many years in ad sales marketing, writing all of the marketing materials for sales to go out and sell programming. I never quite fit in. I always felt like I couldn't really be myself. I didn't really know how to advocate for myself. And I struggled a lot with kind of advancement. And even though I had a nice career, I just really didn't know what my role was or how I wanted to show up. And so when I left corporate and went freelance, like many people, I was just a freelance copywriter, and I had no personality, no point of view. I took whatever jobs came my way. And at some point, of course, the pipeline dries up because I was doing no marketing, no branding, and no networking. And I realized that if I wanted to take control of my career, I needed to figure out, what did I want people to know about me? Who did I want to work with? And what was the type of work that I wanted to be doing? So I ended up working with a creative coach, creating my company. And she's the one who kind of pushed me into putting more of myself on the page. And even for myself, who's quite extroverted, this felt very uncomfortable because I was raised in a time where you fit in and you just towed the party line, and it didn't feel professional. But I realized that the more that I started to do that, the more my voice came through, the more I attracted the right types of people. I had to do less vetting because most people that were coming to me already resonated with who I was. And then I developed this concept of personality brand, which I will share in a second. And we're going to talk about how do we build that personality brand. And I think for me, there's three components. There's authenticity, there's clarity, and then a little something extra. And I love an acronym. So we're trying to essentially ACE our personality brand. So the authenticity piece. Personal branding, the concept really probably came to prominence around the invention of Instagram. All of a sudden, everybody had to be an influencer. Everybody had to share everything. And we were all putting everything about ourselves out on the internet. And for a lot of people, that felt extremely overwhelming, extremely daunting. And it felt like it was an all or nothing game. Like you either had to share everything about yourself or you could share nothing. And there was no in between. But our personality is who we are, and it is always on display, and we dial it up and we dial it down depending on who we're interacting with. So people that know us really well, our friends and our family, they get a lot of our personality. People that we're just meeting might get a little bit less, but we're always giving somebody an aspect of who we are, because that's the thing that drives connection. And so to me, personality brand is sharing the things that you love with someone else. So these are the things that light you up, the hobbies, the passions, the movies that you love, the music you listen to, your culture or your heritage, food, something that you could talk to a total stranger about. How do you bring this into your brand to foster connection, to help you stand out from everybody else? And I'm going to show you later how a lot of us, what we love to do outside of work is actually how we approach our jobs inside of work. And one of the main reasons why having this brand is so important and showcasing your personality is that we just can't all be the best. The reality is that we might be really good at our job, but somebody might be better, and most likely they are. And so by being different, you are becoming better for the right person. So again, it's all about resonating with the right people, aligning yourself for a better fit. And the more you can showcase who you are, the more you're going to attract people who will respond to that and think that that is better for them. And I just want to caveat that professionalism and personality are not mutually exclusive. I think a lot of us, especially if we've only ever worked, in the corporate world, we feel like, professionalism is this sort of very conservative, very traditional. I can't do X, Y, and Z because that's not professional. But really being professional is just doing your work on time, showing up for meetings, being respectful. That's what professionalism means. The personality piece is simply warmth and humanity and friendliness. That's just asking people how their weekend was, getting to know your coworkers, getting to know your clients and your customers. That's the personality piece. And they are a lovely, lovely marriage when done the right way. So I'm going to show you some things that can be your personality brand. So this is Dan. Dan used to work in PR, corporate PR, for like 3 decades. And he decided he was going to go out and hang his own shingle. And the day that he decided to do this, and he told his family, his then teenage daughter brought him what he calls all these happy socks. So she basically was like, Dad, you've been wearing black socks and this boring ass suit every day, and I want you to spruce it up. And so she got him all these fun, crazy socks. So he was telling me this, and what do we think about when we have an item of clothing that is bold? It's going to cut through the clutter. It's going to get noticed. It's going to get attention. What is PR? Cutting through the clutter, getting noticed, garnering attention. So he decided that the socks were going to become his brand. So he helps clients grow their brand by changing their socks. And essentially he says, we stopped wearing the same socks everyone else is wearing a long time ago, meaning we don't believe in dusting off last year's plan and doing it all over again. The only thing we like to wash, rinse, and repeat is our socks. If you go to his website, on the top of the homepage, one of the questions that he's asking clients is what color are their socks. His blog is called The Sock Drawer. And this is not for everyone. Some people might not be interested in this, but I like to think that if you are looking for a small boutique PR firm, what's more memorable? Everyone else that's going to just talk about placement and metrics, or the socks guy. So he is more memorable. He's more interesting. And then somebody's going to ask him, tell me about the socks. What's going on with the socks? Then all of a sudden he can tell this story. He's a dad. He has a whole narrative that he can weave, and it starts the conversation, and it makes him more human, and it makes him more relatable, and it makes him more interesting. And 9 times out of 10, you have people who say, oh my God, I like crazy ties, or I always wear a bold lip, or I love big earrings. It's a way to start a dialogue. It doesn't have to even do anything with the socks. You don't have to like socks. You don't have to wear socks, but it starts the conversation. Okay, next one, I'm going to show you a before and after. So this is Jen, and she used to be the vice president at MasterCard Canada. And this was her previous bio, which, like most people, senior executive with more than 30 years of experience. Already I've lost interest, right? And then she's like communications, public affairs, network of contacts, decisive results, solutions oriented. Every generic thing you can think of that's in a resume is on here. Basically, you could take her picture off of this and put in somebody else's picture, and it would not change at all. This could be anybody's bio. And what we're trying to do is tell our own story and craft our own narrative and stand out. So she recently got promoted, and now she's SVP public policy, right? So proud former public servant, conference speaker and panelist, social impact, super connector, sports nut. My career has taken me around the world, across time zones and conference tables, sitting next to some of the most influential leaders of our time, while having a huge role in shaping the conversation. A former public servant and political staffer turned diplomat, I made my foray into the private sector and currently lead public policy and stakeholder engagement for MasterCard Canada. Then she gets into, worked in both countries and the relationship that they have, this specific impact program that she crafted. And then at the end, I live in Toronto, and when I'm not working and partnering with stakeholders, you can find me golfing, attending major sporting events, and traveling the world. Ask me where I'm off to next, or give me a recommendation. There's a lot more here if you go to her LinkedIn, which I don't even know is updated yet, and because she's so busy. But this gives her ownership. First of all, your LinkedIn page should be in the first person. It's your page. So third person puts up a wall. And this allows her to say, like, this is what I've done. I've not only sat next to these people, I've crafted the conversation. And then she gets into the things that are really important about her and what she thinks about, which is having worked in both countries and the relationships. And then I always say, we got to give people a little something personal. Again, she's got all this stuff about sports and traveling, give me a recommendation, great conversation starter for travel, and just makes it easy to start the conversation.
Can I ask you a question, Danielle?
Yeah.
Before, and let's go back to, because I think it's interesting. The socks guy blew my socks off. Really clear, really different, easy to do it. And while I noticed the before and after, I feel like there's still, now there's more, but there isn't clarity. And of course, she didn't change her image. And so I feel like this is sort of a migration to a personality, but not, she hasn't hit socks level yet. Is that fair?
Yes, but it's also, that's kind of the point, Drew, is that not everybody's going to get to socks level, because not everybody's going to be comfortable there or want to go there. This is, you got to find the place where you feel it expresses enough of you and makes you comfortable. And for Jen, it took a lot to even get here. So it's like, I got the sports nut piece, I got the sporting events and all of that. And obviously we completely changed her entire narrative. Like, there's more here that I didn't put on the slide because it's just too much. And so it is a lot more about what she's done, but that's that is the beauty of what I like to think about with personality brand is like, it doesn't have to be socks level. Like this is her socks for, for lack of a better term. And this is what she's comfortable with. It doesn't mean that a year from now, she might be like, you know what, I'm going to put even more in there. Some people have to baby step it, and some people go all in.
So I guess, so the difference between this one and the last one had no personality. It was just the job. This one has personality in it. And it was just a job. I'm defined by my job. And and now it has personality. And one could argue that one may want to, if you were really trying to do this, define it tighter so that all the pieces sort of fit together. But what she does have now is a narrative.
Correct. I was just going to say, this is, was her job on this slide, but it's also anybody's job.
Right.
Everybody can say we have an established network of contacts. Anybody can say they've developed an ability to influence, that they make decisive results, they're solutions oriented. All of these things say nothing because anybody can claim these. So the new one is her telling her own story and making herself the front runner or the main character, for lack of, that annoying term. Now everybody has main character energy. She's now the main character in her story.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So now keep going.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So two more examples, another before and after. So this is Noelle, strategist, change leader, drives transformation, blah, blah. But what was interesting is if you look at the end of her headline, right? Connoisseur of vinyl, most interesting thing. So, because the rest of this, again, what's happening? Sorry. She opens up with a quote, which is not her quote. It doesn't do anything to help move her story, right? Then she talks about she's a change leader who's led major systems implementations. She's developed strategy, fine, right? Then she talks about skating where the puck is going. Again, it's just very generic and ambiguous, and it doesn't really define kind of how she thinks. So when she was telling me that she is a connoisseur of vinyl, I said, what does that mean? She says, I collect vintage vinyl. She likes to go into record stores and hunt in the bins and try to find these records that she's looking for. So instantly you have a visual. You have a visual of somebody in a bucket, like looking for something. So she does digital transformation. What are they always looking for? Solutions to problems. So now you can imagine like how her brain is working to dig through to figure out the best solution for a problem. So I strongly believe there's a solution to every problem if you're willing to dig in and find it. Like searching for a deep cut or that special album in a record store. My work is a constant search for the next game changer, hidden gem, or overlooked opportunity that can dramatically change everything. Right. So then she talks about, processes and her ability to see the big picture. I've never met a process I couldn't improve upon. And then again, at the end, if you want to talk about process improvement, leadership, or strategy, I'd love to connect, or we can just talk about one of my favorite things, vinyl. I'm currently on the hunt for every album listed on Rolling Stone's top 500. And
so let me pause you for a second, because there are a number of folks on this call that are in transition and are looking for the next opportunity and know they're going to be discovered based on the keywords in their profile.
Yes.
So where's the balance here in terms of keywords versus personality?
So if you look at her title, right? So she has the rare breed who can ideate and execute, but then we have strategic thinker, change leader, drives digital and business transformation, systems and process improvement. So there's a hefty amount of keywords there. And again, her profile is longer than this too. I am not saying take out all of the keywords, but there's a fine line between just what I call jargon salad, where you're just throwing in terms for the sake of throwing in terms, and telling a story where you can reference your expertise. So we want to have some of those keywords because we know that bots are trolling and they're going to pick up these certain things, but then we have to understand that somebody's going to read this. And how do you open it with a more compelling narrative? How do you lead somebody in to actually read what's on here? It's not by opening with how much experience you have and, something very generic. It's figuring out a way to start telling your story. Does that answer your question, Drew?
I think so. I mean, and I'm thinking about a CMO, and obviously that term is going to be in the terms. And if
Of
it's B2B
course.
CMO, or if
Yes.
it's the category that they're in,
Mhm.
and, if they're a 5X revenue driver, or they 4 exits, or 5
Yes,
times CMO with X kind of results, that's going to cover 99% of their search. Now make yourself different is what you're saying.
exactly. Because again, a lot of CMOs can probably say the same thing. And it's going to be about personality fit. How do you make sure that you are going to end up in an environment where they're going to value you for who you are, where you can be who you are, and where they're going to, if you think differently, if you have a different way of working, if there's something unique to your process, if you've had the same team for a long time and there's a loyalty there, putting those things in that are more important to you and how you think than just some of this amazing things that you've done, which are super valuable and they should be in here, but it can't just be a laundry list of your accomplishments. There has to be more to the story.
So, and there's a couple of things that I'm noticing that are trending here. One is the importance of writing this about copy and turning that into a narrative. And two, making it easy give them one thing you can talk about other than your job.
100%.
And it's so funny, I have to say, because I've had Ben Franklin Nut on my LinkedIn profile for several years, and it comes up each time, almost every time someone's looked at my profile. They don't, there's all sorts of other things, but it's the last thing there. So a little bit of sort of personality that will strike a passion and help them understand who you are as a person. Okay, good.
Yes.
Got it.
100%. And Noelle has said, like, every person who talks to her mentions the vinyl, every single one. So if that's all you need, and I know people are like, well, that denigrates my expertise. It doesn't. It's an easy intro to talk, and then you can showcase your skills and you can talk more about yourself, but make it easy for them to start the conversation, because her old bio, like, what would you have even talked about? Like, it's just so boring. And so we're trying to show people that there's more to us than just our jobs and give a little dimension.
Cool.
Awesome. All right. So now I would love to know, and you guys can put it in the chat, or you could raise your hands or come off mute, something that comes to mind about your own personality that you think you can put into your message. And ideally, I'm looking for something specific. So running, no, what kind of running? Like, are you a marathon runner? Do you like 5Ks? Are you a horrible runner? The more specific you can be, or the more intentional with this, the better, because it's, again, easier to start the conversation and it makes you more unique, right? So like Drew, if you had just put like a history buff, more boring or less interesting than Ben Franklin Nut, which is super specific, right? Because then it's going to make somebody want to know more. And hold on, let me see what's in the chat. Yep, Little League baseball umpire. Okay, so does that mean you're really into baseball? Globetrotter and athlete. Great. Mom to Siberian Huskies. I would love that. Space geek. I love that. Oh, wow. Former rocket scientist. I mean, you could say you're literally a rocket scientist. That should be in the profile. It's amazing. Sailing instructor. Yeah, these are great. I mean, I love for literal rocket scientist. That's awesome. Okay. So that's our kind of authenticity piece, right? Giving people a little bit of ourselves. Now, this is the most important, I think, is the clarity piece. And I think so many of us, especially if you've worked in an industry for a long time, you're sort of relying on, speaking the lingo. And sometimes it's hard to really step out and get really clear on what we do versus what we've always been told we do. So I really believe that you cannot be confident in who you are and the job you do if you are not clear. And that clarity is, again, knowing who you are, knowing who your audience is. And this could change. So if you are job hunting, your audience is your potential employer. If you're in an organization, your audience might be your boss or your boss's boss, or it could be your team or your customers or your clients, right? And it can change and evolve depending on where you are and who you're trying to talk to. And then, of course, the most important thing is, what do they need, right? Their challenges, their struggles, their pain points, right? Everyone's a CMO, you understand this. And then that unique thing that you can give them, right? Whether it's how you think, how you support, just your different way of working, something that's unique to you and how you approach your job. And this is so important because I think so many of us either forget or we only remember when we're job hunting that we're in control of our message and our bio. And a lot of times our resume or our LinkedIn profile just becomes a laundry list of everything we've ever done. And it doesn't really have a shape or a narrative or a story. And it is okay and more than okay to, what I say, kill your darlings, meaning everything you've ever done is not relevant. We don't need to see it on there. If you have done something that you still think is important, there's a way to weave that into your narrative. And if you've done something previously in a role that you never want to do again, you do not have to put it on there. We can highlight the things that we want to do or the things that we want to do in the future and shine a light on that, because nobody has to know what we've done previously. And then on the other side of the coin is something we've done that might not seem relevant can be related in a way that makes it relevant to a future role. So a lot of companies now, luckily, are looking for more of a person fit and understand that skills can be adapted and behaviors and processes can be adapted in order to work in a different industry. I actually just had a client who we redid his whole resume and bio, and he just reached out to me and landed a great role. And he's like, I don't think this was an industry I ever would have thought. He's like, but it's such a good fit for him based on his abilities. And for him, that was the most important thing. So you just never know sometimes where it's going to lead you based on how you tell your story. Oh, kill your darlings. I already said that. And of course, this is one of the things that a lot of us are guilty of, is we put in all of these generic terms that we're just so ingrained to do since forever. So I like to say you can put veteran in your bio if you've served in the military. Seasoning is for chicken cutlets. Everybody's experienced, right? Strategic thinker, team player, thrive in a fast-paced environment. All of these things are what they want to hear, but not what you actually want them to know about you. So how do you say these in a more creative way, or how do you not say them at all? I mean, how many of us really want to thrive in a fast-paced environment anymore, right? Don't we want to slow down? Isn't that part of the point? So thinking about other ways to say things, there's ways to talk about your vast experience without saying that it's veteran or seasoned. You don't even have to put years. There's more clever ways. I often joke that I've been working since there were fax machines. You know, you can give people an idea of the length of your tenure in more creative ways.
And can I ask just a question on all of these? Aren't terms that people would search?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Right. So you're just adding clutter to the thing. So it's almost like the old English teacher who just got rid of the adjectives.
Correct. Yeah.
In some
tighter,
way.
tighter and tighter. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a great point. And I'm sure all of you probably are aware of this too. 7 seconds is about the average amount of time that a potential client or employer is looking at your LinkedIn page. So this is also why putting something in your headline, opening with something different, I call it, you want to jar them out of their stupor, because we're all so used to reading the same things, right? You ever go to like a networking meeting and everybody stands up and says, hi, I'm so-and-so and I do this. And by the 10th person, you've completely lost, you don't pay attention. But if somebody gets up and is like, when was the last time you did blah, blah, blah? All of a sudden your brain pays attention. So we're just trying to change things up so that we can catch someone's attention so that they will read this.
Wait, so
Yes.
so we're not data-driven strategic thinkers who drive revenue?
I mean, we are, but we could say that in a much more exciting way.
Okay. Got it. Just checking. Okay.
Yeah. And I also just want to emphasize that our bios are for us, but they're in service of our audience. So yes, it's about you. You want to talk about all your accomplishments, but how do you do it in a way that says to someone, I have done this before, I can now do this for you or your organization. So we're using this in service. It's not just to show how amazing we are. It's here's how amazing I am, and here's why that matters to you. So it's also why we tell more of a narrative than just bullet points of all our accomplishments, because out of context, those don't mean anything to anyone. But if you want to highlight that you have tripled revenue or done these amazing cost savings or gotten all of this impressions or engagement for one of your brands or one of your clients. Talk more about it in the story and what went into it versus just that stat, which again, out of context, is not going to really tell somebody how you think or how you can repeat this. And we also want to think, again, we talked about solving their pain points, showing what they need, right? I talked about all of this. And then the last piece, demonstrate what it's going to be like to work with you. Again, if we are being too generic in our bios, or we are just putting a whole bunch of accomplishments, nobody knows who you are. And then you will be in an interview and you're not going to be able to assess if it's a culture fit. So the more you can put yourself out there, the more they're going to get a sense of who you are. And again, like attracts like, hopefully, and you will be able to hopefully step into the right environment for you. And also showcase to people how you think, what makes you different, so that they will appreciate you for more than just your skills. And I call this your brand positioning. You guys will call it, value prop, any of the things, you can take your pick. But essentially, we're trying to answer these few questions in a statement. This could also be your elevator pitch. When you open up and you introduce yourself, you want to think about talking to your audience and what they're going through, your category or the space that you're in. Again, why are you effing awesome? What do what's different about you? And then that payoff or benefit of what they're going to get by hiring you, working with you, etc. What can you do better than somebody else? So I'll give you a couple quick brand positionings. And these are, one is from the top of somebody's resume and one is from part of their bio. When you design the ideal organization, thinking about your talent is vital. It's about creating the perfect recipe of building the right roles, filling them with the best people, and having the right timing. I make that happen by quickly assessing the talent you need and the talent you have, discovering where they're best positioned to deliver on your vision. So opening up, talking to the audience, right? What are their pain points, right? They have to find the right roles, fill them with the best people, and it's all about the timing. And then that payoff, what do I do better? I quickly assess the talent you have and the talent you need, and I figure out where they're best positioned to deliver on your vision. So, and not super personality driven, but it doesn't have to be in the positioning, because this is meant to just be really clear and explain to someone that you understand what they need and you're the right person for them. The second example, I'm a certified coach, reinvention expert, speaker, and author, but what I really am is a professional permission granter. Through supportive coaching and facilitated culture change, I help people and organizations to overcome struggle, releasing the myth of perfection and learning how to do the work in order to get to the other side. So what I love about this is everybody's a coach these days, like everybody. There's a gazillion of them. So how do you stand out and how do you differentiate yourself? This person's like, yeah, I'm all these things, but here's what I really am. Okay, professional permission granter. Now it's like, what does that mean? I need to know more. And then when you talk to her, you find out that she is a kind of coach that wants people to fail, meaning it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay. She gives you the permission to do all these things so that you can get past the perfectionism and really start doing the work. But essentially, this is for you guys to spend some time thinking about your own positioning. And so I've given you my positioning here, and then I've given you like a little fill in the blank here. And it doesn't have to be in this order, but you can start it this way, kind of answer the different questions, and then kind of play around and try to come up with some sort of, 1 to 2 to 3 sentence thing that sums up who you're talking to, what you offer, why you're different, and again, what they're going to get when they hire you, work with you, etc. And you can do this both internal and external, meaning this could be if you want to introduce it in I terminology, if you're introducing yourself, or you want to do it more in like what the top example did previously, where it's like talking more directly to the audience.
Can I ask a question on this phase on doing this? It's funny because we talk a lot in huddles about talking to your customers and so forth. And I wonder how important in this exercise is for the CMOs to go back to their CEO or their direct reports and saying, hey, I was thinking about this. What do you think? Or do it for me. I mean, and get some input. Is that a good way of getting to something that you may have just not recognized about yourself?
So I will get to something at the end, but I actually tell people to go ask 5 people in your life for 3 words that come to mind when they think of you. And these should be different people from different walks of life, because 9 times out of 10, multiple people come back with either the same word or similar words. And to your point, Drew, like those are the things that we likely do well that we take for granted, that we don't even include, because we're so used to just doing it that we don't think it's a value, but it turns out to be the value again for the right person. So if your boss is telling you, you know what, you're always that, you're just so thoughtful, and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, what does that even mean?" Maybe you're the person in the meeting who recognizes someone that's not being called on, and you can bring that up. Maybe you're the one that remembers everybody's birthdays. Maybe you're the person that gets everybody to the meeting on time because you're the most punctual. So there's things that seem not important, but in the grand scheme of things are just super valuable for the right person.
So, I want to get to one other thing that I think is really hard here in this. So all these folks are CMOs, and there is a desire for every CMO, a CEO and board and CFO wants to hire a CMO who can drive revenue, right?
Yeah.
And ideally, and they have a specific, they're at 50 million, they want to get to 100. They're at 250, they want to get to $1 billion. And so I wonder how the folks listening can get out of the trap of saying revenue driving CMO. And because in some ways that is the first question that they're gonna, or a question. And then the next question is how, right? And the processes that most CMOs take are not that different. So, help us here. This is very specific here.
Yeah.
These are B2B CMOs who work in a variety of categories, who need to show that they can drive. Sometimes it's drive change, organizational change, but a lot of times, and sometimes it's set up a marketing demand generation engine, but revenue.
So a couple of things I would say, don't you want to have a good relationship with your CEO? Don't you want to be easily relatable to them? Don't you want them to have this comfortable, lovely relationship with you and enjoy spending time with you? And if all you're putting out there is driving revenue, and everybody's putting out driving revenue, what's the differentiator, right? The differentiator is going to be personality. Do you supplement something for the CEO that they don't have, that they need? Do you enjoy them as well, right? If they're just all about the numbers, and maybe that's not your jam, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. So the way for you to separate yourself is to be a little bit more personality focused, so that they're hopefully responding to more than just the results that you're going to garner, but there's something about you that they're like, I actually want to have meetings with this person. I want to connect with this person. It's going to be enjoyable.
So it's funny because this goes back to Forrester Summit, where they talked about 4 aspects of RAND value: economic, functional, experiential, and symbolic. And it feels like the experiential value in this case is the personality. They still want the economic,
of course,
and they want the functional,
right?
But you've got to get to that experiential. So I'm okay.
Yes,
there it is.
I like to say that the what you do is assumed, right? Like you're getting an interview. It's assumed you have the skills for the job. Now who you are is the missing piece, and will that be a fit for the CEO and this company, and vice versa? So you obviously want to tout your accomplishments, and you want them to know that you can do the job, but also don't we want to enjoy the people we work with? And if you're not putting yourself out there in a way that's going to drive that connection, you might not find the right fit for you. And that's why, and I also think I know that CMOs is one of the hardest and shortest term jobs that there is. And I don't know, but I'm wondering if it's because everybody's just talking about the revenue piece, or it's the first job to go because it's not P&L. But I think the more you can, again, like enhance who you are and try to foster connection, maybe there's a way to create a little bit more longevity based on that relationship.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering as you're talking, and I'm thinking about these folks, there's an opportunity there. They go in, they do their homework, they discover the vision and mission and purpose of the organization. They look at that and say, I like that mission, vision, person. I'm going to make sure that I align with that. And sometimes it may mean creating about one-to-one about statement, right? And I think it's tricky because you also have to get offers.
Correct.
Right. And
Yes.
you want to show alignment. And so you present yourself as the best person for the job and in your best self. I guess it takes tremendous confidence to say, this is who I am, and I will work well in this environment.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope, as a CMO, I would hope that you have the confidence to say, this is who I am. And, I understand, obviously, some of us, like, we have to get a job, but like, you also have more control than you think, right? They have to want you, but you have to want them. So there is this piece that if you are putting a little bit of yourself on there and somebody doesn't like that, good, right? Like, then go find somebody that does, because we want to find something that's going to be a better fit, not just a temporary fit.
Let's go to something extra.
All right, a little something extra. And then I want to make sure we have time for questions. So I'm going to show you a couple examples of some components to a strong bio. Again, opening with your why, right? I think anything, again, where we can tell our story and make it relatable is super relatable to others. So before becoming a communication coach, I spent years on the sidelines being interrupted and talked over by the loudest voices in the room. Right? It's very compelling if there is a tie back to why you do what you do, or you can open with a story. Is there something from childhood that is relatable? Anything that kind of talks about your why and why you do what you do, or why you got into it. Obviously bringing in some personality. Resumes are my superpower. I didn't discover this unique yet practical skill until several years ago when two women in tech pointed out that I find mistakes in every resume I read. So I love this because it's like a little braggy at the beginning, but then why is she bragging? She didn't even know she had this skill. Somebody pointed it out to her, and now this is her thing. So there's a nice little wink and a nod there. And then, of course, humor. So expanding on the previous, initially dubious about how I could make a difference with this newfound ability, an Elle Woods moment sealed my fate. Instead of setting my sights on Harvard Law School, I decided to speak about resumes at the Ivy League of Women in Tech conferences, the annual Grace Hopper celebration. What, like it's hard? And for this one, I say, even if somebody doesn't get the reference, they don't know who Elle Woods is, they're not picking up on it. Again, it's going to open a question. It's, what is Grace Hopper? Tell me about this. Explain the reference to me. So how do we kind of write this narrative? How do we tell our story? I like to say we want to aim for a pretty significant long bio. LinkedIn, you get 2,600 characters for your main about section. Your title is 220 characters. Use all of them, especially in the title, because that's where you can put your keywords. And then what you can do is, the idea is you want to have modularity to this. So if you're a speaker and you need a paragraph speaking bio, if in your organization, on your website for the company, you need 1 or 2 paragraphs, something long allows you to pull out parts and pieces and use it for different things. So ideally you have that, either that opening statement or question that you're talking directly to your client or your customer. You could open with your why if you want, and or your brand positioning, which kind of does all of these things for you when you have it. Then you can get into your background, of course, like what have you done, your experience, all of that expertise. Of course, we want to include some of your metrics and your stats and your brags, but try to do it in a way that's not just a laundry list. Give context if you're going to include things like that. And then the fun stuff, right? Your hobbies, your passions, awards. And I like to say this could be real awards like in your industry, or it could be like, voted fastest in the family turkey trot or something. Like that's also a way to be a little whimsical and fun there if you've got something there. And then for your LinkedIn, that kind of call to action at the end, similar to what, Jennifer did and what Noelle did, which is, if you want to talk about, the job or whatever, that's great. Or we can just talk about this, which opens the door for someone to reach out to you in a more easy way. So 3 quick things, what you can do today with your bio, make yourself irreplaceable. So if you go look at your bio and like Jen's original one, anybody can put their name there and it doesn't change it. What can you do to make yourself irreplaceable? Make it 100% yours tomorrow. Determine where your line is, right? With personality brand, what is on the table? What is off the table? You're allowed to have boundaries. There are things that nobody needs to know about you. Think about what those are. Figure out what you're willing to share. And then we just talked about, asking people for words that describe you, which I also think is just really, really valuable for people. And I'm just going to leave you with the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, which I think is just such an amazing quote. And lastly, if anyone is interested, I have like a quick little 10-point checklist that is very small ways to tweak your bio, to infuse a little bit more personality and just some things to make it more readable and more skimmable. If you want to shoot the QR code, you can do that. And then, of course, I always say, please connect with me. LinkedIn is where I hang out a lot, but I'm also on Instagram and you can come to my website or you can email me.
Very cool. Thank you for all that. I wonder if anybody has any immediate questions for Danielle. I have a few takeaways that I hadn't really thought about in a while. The first takeaway here that I really hadn't thought about is the about section and the importance of that in telling that in a compelling narrative way. And I think that's just such a missed opportunity, and one that I imagine would be also it will help you understand. I always say that if you write something down and you get it right, it will help you understand and force you in this journey to write it. So that writing the about section was number one. Writing it in the first person is the second thing, that because mine doesn't start that way. Mine says Drew Neiser is a blah, blah, blah. So can't do that. One thing we didn't talk about in personal brand, which, it's funny, Joe Paluzzi talks about because he always wears orange, and, everybody knows I wear the green shirt on all my videos and so forth. But, wardrobe, personal brand, part of it. I
mean, it can be. I just, somebody recently who's like a pretty well-known brand person came out with this article and it was like all the things to do. For me, it's like, what is the, if you're gonna, it's too many barriers for someone. It's hard enough to do this that now I'm going to tell you have to go wear certain clothes and you have to go do this. I think it can be a personal choice. I do not have a personal, I have a style, but I do not wear the same things. If I'm on a Zoom, I always try to wear an earring or something, but I just think, at least give me your hobby. That's the bare minimum. If you want to go clothing, that's great, but I just don't think that's for everyone. And I don't think it's required.
Well, and I just want to reference that part of the thing was for me is I try to eliminate the decisions I have to make in my life, as many of my can. And this made it easy. I have 3 of these shirts, by the way. And now when I'm not wearing that, I have a neat little CMO Huddles shirt that I can wear that has penguins on it. So all good. So it was more than just personal brand. It was ease of that.
And I have friends like that too, who are they only wear black or shades of black. And that's a wardrobe. Fine. Totally fine.
Confidence comes from clarity. I love that because he talked about the importance of confidence, because so many times you're having these interviews and it's just not the right job for you because the fit isn't right. And you also know that your success is going to be about your relationship with your CEO. And so you better have a good bond. And if they're not responding to your personality, it's not going to get better.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So the confidence to know this is who I am, and this is what gets me excited, what gets you excited, and let's find the bonds. And if we don't, okay, next. Yeah, I'm still really concerned and be interested. And any of you who are attending, if you want to draft I would love to see everybody's title bio rewritten, and I'd love to look at those. And I'll volunteer to look at those, because it would be fascinating to take all of yours today and see what language you're using, or how you find a way to say more than data-driven, strategic thinking, revenue-driving B2B CMO, right?
And I always tell people, feel free to send them to me after you've worked on them. I will happily take a look, for sure.
That would be awesome, because I think people would really appreciate it. And I'm just curious because I know that is the door opener. Oh, they drove revenue 10x at their last job, or they got from 250 million to $1 billion. Okay, I want that. And it's just one part of the story, I think, is the key thing there, is that there is some experiential value that you're putting in your bio that you can do. So find that. Okay.
There was a question in the chat about what do I think about LinkedIn references and recommendations and their connection to profiles. He says he's learned that we can curate our own recommendations. I mean, I think, of course, like, get all the recommendations you can. I don't think they should be overly curated. Like, some people are like, oh, send me what you want me to say. If they all sound too similar, it's going to seem fake. But I think you can absolutely be reaching out to people, because a lot of times we can pull an amazing nugget from somebody's recommendation. Like, they will say, I have things on my website that people have said about me that I'm like, oh my God, like, I would never think to say that. And that's amazing. And now I'm going to use that as part of my bio. So I do think that anytime we ask people for a recommendation or a reference, it can give us an idea or fodder for how we think that we don't, again, even really realize.
Very cool. Well, Danielle, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.